Okay, let's go into problem 3. First, the numerator and denominator of x minus 3 are opposites. To simplify expressions, you can factor -1 for 3 minus x and get negative of the -3 plus x, which you can rewrite as -1 times x minus 3. And now I can simplify it. So let's take a look at some examples. So here I have 4 minus x squared over x minus 7. x minus 14. So if I factor, up top I get, because it's the difference of squares, I get 2 minus x times 2 plus x all over 7 times x minus 2. So notice I have opposites. So I'm going to pull out a negative. And just to let you know, they're doing the same thing here. So if I pull out a negative, I'm going to be able to switch it around. So we'll just pull out a negative, and that's going to turn to x minus 2. And we can turn that around too if we want. It doesn't matter though. And 7 times x minus 2. So now those cross out, and I'm left with negative times x plus 2 all over 7. And I can still find my denominator, my excluded values, So I can still find my excluded values. So once again, this is exactly the same thing that they got. If I find my excluded values, I'm just going to take this here, set it equal to 0. So x minus 2 equal to 0. X cannot equal 2. Okay? So now let's try a few on our own. Let me erase this. Should have paused the video, I'm sorry. Okay, so here, 2x minus 5, I can't factor that. And 5 minus 2x, can't factor that either. But they're opposites of each other, so we can pull out a negative. So let's pull out a negative down here. Doesn't matter which one I pull out a negative from, by the way. Oops, this should be minus 5. And they end up crossing out. So I'm left with just plain old -1. Because if nothing's up here, when I'm talking about multiplication, there's an invisible 1 always, right? So I get -1. I can find my excluded values by setting this equal to 0. So 2x minus 5 equal to 0. When I subtract, I get 5 over 2. So x cannot equal 5 over 2. Alright? Let's erase. Let's do the next one. So here, y squared minus 16 is the difference of squares. So I have y minus 4 times y plus 4 over 4 minus y. Well, I have the opposite of 1 at the bottom. So I'm going to pull out a negative so I can flip it. So I get negative of y minus 4. So that crosses out. And I'm left with, so I get y plus 4 over -1, which is just negative y plus 4. To find my excluded values, I can do y minus 4 equals 0. So y cannot equal 4. Okay? Let me pause. Alright, the next one, you have 3 minus 9d over 6d squared plus d minus 1. So I see here they both have a factor of 3, so I'm going to pull that out, and I get 1 minus 3d. At the bottom, 6 times 1 is -6, so my factors will be +5 and -1. And so I get 6d squared plus 5d minus d minus 1. So I'm factoring by grouping. So that turns into a plus. So they have in common I'm sorry. I made a mistake here. Let me start that over. I was not looking at my numerator correctly. So again, that's 6 times -1, which is -6. and I want it to add up to 1, so that means that I need 3 and negative 2 instead. I'm sorry. So 3 times negative 2 equals negative 6, and 3 plus negative 2 equals positive 1. So I get 6, and this is just, by the way, if we don't remember how to factor, it's really important for this section, you have to know how to factor. If you don't know how to factor, please go back to lesson 8 for factoring, and the one that I'm factoring now is factoring with an a greater than 1. So here it is right here, this lesson here. You have to know how to do this in order to go into this section. So I get 6d squared plus 3d minus 2d minus 1. I group them. This changes to a plus because I put it in front of a negative. I can pull out a 3d, and I'm left with 2d plus 1. Here nothing can come out, so there's an invisible 1, and that's 2d plus 1. So I have 3d minus 1 that I can pull out, so that's 3d minus 1. And at the bottom I have 2d plus 1 that they have in common. And so up top I can switch it around. So let me erase some of this. That was my work for factoring my denominator. Let's go back to the actual simplification. So I'm going to pull out a negative, and I get 3d minus 1. And I have 3d minus 1 at the bottom. So as you probably know, that's going to cancel out. And I'm left with negative 3 over 2d plus 1. Well, to get my excluded values, I'm going to set this equal to 0. Set both of those equal to 0. So let's do that. I get 3d minus 1 equals 0, and 2d plus 1 equals 0. So I add 1. Get 3d equals 1. Divide both sides by 3. D cannot equal 1/3. Same thing here. Subtract 1. Get 2d equals negative 1. Divide by 2. D cannot equal negative 1/2. So here are my excluded values. Alright, I do believe there is one more. Okay, so let's factor. At the numerator we have a factor of 3, so that's 1 minus z at the top. And for my denominator I have a factor of 2, so that is z squared, minus 1. Oops, I have it written twice, I'm sorry. Minus 1. And this actually can be factored more. Well, first, let me go ahead and flip this around. It's going to be negative 3 times z minus 1. This is 2. Z squared minus 1 is also z minus 1 and z plus 1. And that's just my difference of squares. And like I said, you can find that here. This is factoring special cases. Okay. And so here they cross out, and I'm left with negative 3 over 2 times z plus 1. And to find my excluded values, I set these two equal to 0. So I have z minus 1 equals 0 and z plus 1 equals 0. So z cannot equal 1 or negative 1. I certainly hope this helps.